Hi, this is Joyce Polino Crane. I'm the news director at WestfordCAT. I'm here today with a conservationist, one of the biggest ones in town, Bill Harmon, who has been a land steward for many years as well. We're here to talk about Article 16. On the phone with us is Tom Barry and Bill Nussbaum. They're going to be part of this conversation about Article 16, which asks voters to approve the amendment of an agricultural restriction to allow a restaurant to be built on Boston Road. So what I want to do is have Tom and Bill Nussbaum explain to us why they filed the citizens petition on behalf of developer Abi Masaladon to see, to tell us why they favor the restaurant, and Bill is going to tell us why he is opposed to the restaurant. So, Tom, are you there?
I am. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Joe.
We're both great here, Bill and I, in the studio. Could you guys give us an idea of why you filed the citizens petition?
Sure. Basically, Bill and I have watched the progression of this proposal since 2016. We've both been at the town meetings in 2016 and 2017 where the topic was discussed. I've been a resident in the town of Westford for 36 years, and Bill has been a resident for 17 years. We have watched what has happened to the property at 6668 Boston Road since Keith Boney sold Drew Farm. We've been involved strictly as volunteers with Abi Masaladon over the last 6 months, initially to determine what his plans were for the site. We wanted the plans to be amenable to as many people in Westford as possible. Spending time with Abi over those last 6 months has shown us that Abi was determined to build something that was aesthetically pleasing and would fit with the character of Westford. He wanted to build an upscale restaurant that residents, I should say, would be proud to frequent without having to travel out of town. This prompted Abi to retain an architectural firm, Sakari Architects, to design a vision building concept to meet those requirements. Additionally, Abi has decided to create a small country store in the restaurant, selling available produce from APRs 1 and 2, and from the roughly 150 apple, pear, and cherry trees on the property. So that's why Bill and I got involved. Abi was very sincere in what he's trying to do. He has been trying to do this for, I think, about 3 years. And we just felt that we wanted to help him by supporting his vision. So we filed the citizen petition at this year's town meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask Bill why he opposes it now.
Well, you know, we might agree on the unattractive appearances there. In fact, I think that's a very important reason why some people are supporting the idea of a restaurant. But the way you were just explaining that there, Tom, it made me wonder this. When you were, at least maybe 2 years ago, talking with the current owner, and you were talking about what was a vision for the future, I assume your vision of the future, if it had been the same way it was when the APR was created in the 1990s, you wouldn't have had an objection to that. In other words, it wouldn't really be necessary to build a new farm stand, but you could use the farm, it could have, let's say, fixed up the farm stand that we've had in the past. And so maybe I mean this as a question. Do you and I, all three of us, agree that it's the unattractive appearances that is the reason for considering a restaurant proposal?
I think that times change, Bill, and since the APR was put on in 1997, the town of Westford has changed pretty dramatically. It's not the farming community that we once had.
Yeah.
When I moved in, there was no stoplight in town.
I'll tell you what.
But now there's a fire station, and I must say a beautiful fire station, right across the street from the 6668 Boston Road. And I think that, of course, Ebby has only been involved for the past 3 years, not since 1997. And he bought that land
hey, Bill,
to make
Tom,
a change.
I want to call attention to your comment about times change. I just want to make sure we're all under the understanding that when the town took steps to preserve that farmland, it did this with documentation that includes the words in perpetuity. And so this is no surprise, I know, to you. And when you mention stoplights and things like that, as we've added stoplights, we have not violated any of our plans that were set in perpetuity. But this one is in perpetuity. The town of Westford really wanted to keep that area of Boston Road with that nice, attractive condition that we had there. And by the way, I was working on that. I was one of the people that was appointed to this committee that was trying to develop a way of taking care of this farmland and also a lot of other area. I spent over 10 years on that project, as I had told you before, Tom. And I think we did a rather good job because there's a lot of town-owned land in that area and a lot of conservation land and trails. It's a very charming area, with the exception of the unattractive appearance of this one landowner's property. And so I do think we probably do agree that it's the unattractive appearances that have developed there that is the reason for even considering such something that is totally not allowed in perpetuity. So do we agree on that?
I think, if I could, this is Bill Nussbaum, Bill. Yeah. I think that and I think we basically will agree in a certain way on this whole situation. We agree in keeping the APRs in perpetuity. We're only seeking to amend APR number 3. We totally agree that we want to, the original concept was fine. I don't think that that was a major problem. I think what we've run into here is that we would like to, and I agree with you, the property site now is not what it should be, and that, of course, is a factor. But I think what we're trying basically to do is encompass all of this and make this now an attractive situation, but still maintain the APRs as they originally were.
Okay.
We just want to amend this to make this a viable and a site that everybody can be proud of in the town.
Now you're getting into some wording where we don't agree. You know, you use the word amending to make it seem like a minor change, but really it's certainly a real violation of the in perpetuity conditions that we documented. And of course that's the reason why you are taking this to town meeting. I would like to read this paragraph to you from an agreement that Mr. Masaladan signed, and I have his signature in this. This is element number 9. It's short, but I think you'll find it interesting unless you already know about this. Reading from this signed agreement, it says, if town meeting does not approve the amendment to APR 3, the buyer acknowledges and agrees that it will own the property subject to the existing APRs, and it will use diligent efforts to comply with the terms of the APRs by developing active agricultural uses on the property. Does that sound familiar to you, Tom and Bill?
Yeah, it sure does. And Ebby is not trying to change that. He wants to continue developing the active agricultural uses on APRs 1 and 2. And as you well know, Bill, APR 3 is non-farmable. That has been shown many times.
That's not true.
Ebby is trying to continue the developing of these agricultural uses.
Well, we did hit on a difference of opinion there. Hold on, wait.
People just don't want him to continue with APRs 1 and 2. I don't understand what they want.
Just a minute here.
Tom,
We hit on one thing that we see it differently
Tom,
factually.
Yeah, Bill wants to
You were saying that APR 3,
make a point with you.
which is the 3 acres at one end of this 9-acre farm, you were saying, I think you said, as we all know, that's not farmable. Well, really, that's technically not correct, as I understand it, because that was part of the original farm that the town spent money on to preserve, and nothing has changed from that time. The farm stand was there, and the farm stand can be used today, and the agricultural uses in that area, there was a little bit of farming in the ground, and there was also some greenhouses. But my main point is that there's nothing relevant to this town meeting concerning the soils or anything about the agricultural conditions on APR 3, because there's been no change whatsoever.
So I interviewed Keith Boney, who worked for Benjamin Drew when that was a viable facility, and people were coming to it and buying things. He did say to me that that Benjamin Drew allowed a sand and gravel contractor to deplete the land and use it for the building of Interstate 495.
I heard that too. But it doesn't change the fact that the total 9 acres were a farm, and that's the property that the town invested in and declared in writing to be in perpetuity. So that hasn't changed. The thing that you're talking about was before the APR was established, and I agree with that.
Yes, that was before.
Now, Bill, if you had heard me, what I was saying was APRs 1 and 2 would be as farmable next month as they were 3 months ago.
Well, we're not talking about 1 and 2.
10 years ago.
We're not talking about 1 and 2 because the proposed restaurant is on number 3. There's no reason to discuss the first 6 acres. It's only that 3 acres that we're discussing.
Bill, let's talk about those. Okay, let's just talk about those 3 acres.
You brought them up.
Keith Boney, and we have certainly spent some time with Keith and gotten as much background as we possibly could on this. And a lot of the information came directly from Keith, who has had, occupied that for more than 30 years, and has stipulated and pretty much said that, that land is an entity. While there was a building on it, it had not been farmed actively in that period of time. So that what we're looking at, and as far as the building concept is concerned, is strictly, and people should, I hope, understand this, that it's only APR 3, which, again, what we're saying appears to be non-farmable. That's where the building is going, and we're utilizing in perpetuity APR 1 and APR 2 to work with APR 3 and just amend that. And I hope there's no misconception about that.
All right. I'm sure you can see that I don't consider that a logical reasoning, but nevertheless, I think we've explored it and you've given your opinion. I want to call attention to this. Is it possible, I think it is possible, I want to see if you agree with this, that if the current owner did end up getting permission to build a restaurant there, both getting over the APR and also the zoning violation, if he was able to do that, that he might sell the property at that point and never actually build anything, but just take the profit, which is probably well over $1 million, and consider that a successful development project. So my question is, isn't that true? That's one of the possibilities?
No, let me address that, Bill. If you take a minute and read the article, and towards the end of the article, I think it's the last sentence in the major paragraph. Let me read that to you. It says,
I've read it.
Let me read it. Bill, let me read it. Let me read it anyways, and you're not the only one listening to this.
Yeah, go ahead and read it.
It says, it's very short. It says, if the grantor, that is Ebby Mathaladin, exercises the rights in this paragraph, there will be no change in use or transfer of any interest in the premises without the express written approval of the grantee. and the grantee is the Board of Selectmen. So you're absolutely wrong. He cannot build a restaurant and then turn around and sell it for $3 million or whatever you're talking about.
Tom, where was that? Where did you read that from? What was that? What was the source?
Right, that's right in the article when we wrote the petition to place the article on town meeting warrant. There's a major paragraph in the center, and that's the last sentence.
So that's part of Article 16.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, you know, I must admit, I was not aware of that. I'm going to look that over. Let me ask you this. Isn't it true also, Bill, that restaurants do fail? This is a different point, but if someone were to build a restaurant in good faith, a fair percentage of restaurants do fail, and so it is possible that a different owner would end up owning the property there. Is that true?
But again, Bill, the important point here is that the Board of Selectmen will dictate what goes on if there's a restaurant, which we would doubt would fail, but indeed if it did or there was another change of use. It is only the Board of Selectmen in the town of Westford who can approve a change. And it is right smack in that article.
Okay. There's some legal technicalities that was mentioned in your interview with Bob Krankowitz previously, and we did hit on something that we don't completely agree on there, so no need to dwell on that.
Well, I'm sure that's okay. Yeah, I mean, as long as people understand that it's there, and that if Ebby exercised his right in this paragraph, that there will be no change in use or transfer of any interest in the premises without the express written approval of the Board of Selectmen.
I'll tell you what, let me just add my vision of what would happen if it were possible for the current owner to get permission to build a restaurant and also including the zoning change. Then it would be possible for it to be sold. I know you've given me reasons to think maybe we're protected against that. But furthermore, I would add that the new owner would be able to generate his own plans and his own drawings for here's the building I'm going to build, and we might end up with in that possibility. Unlikely, I think, but that possibility would be something that had no resemblance to the drawings that we've been looking at for this. Okay, I know we don't agree on everything I said there, but I just want to give you my opinion.
Yeah, I appreciate your opinion. However, if this passes town meeting, this does not give Ebby the right to go ahead and build his restaurant. He has to then sit down with his attorneys and the Board of Selectmen and have the Board of Selectmen put restrictions and conditions on if they ever get to an approval.
There's Bill, is the Zoning Board of Appeals, as you well know. You know how the town of Westford works as well as anybody. There are some at the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, Conservation. Everyone will have the right, if this is approved, has the right to sit with the Board of Selectmen and give their insight into what they feel should be happening, what the restrictions should be. This article is strictly asking that the Board of Selectmen and Ebby get together to see if they can reach an agreement on the restaurant. This is not approving the restaurant. It's approving the right to have and sit down and talk about the possibility of that.
Okay. Well, I think I've come to the end of the material I was going to cover. You didn't actually respond, I think, to that agreement paragraph that I read. It sounds to me like that's being violated because the owner agreed if in the event of losing that first vote, and as you know, he actually lost the first vote and another vote. This will be the third vote this time. But having lost the first one, he had already promised to do agriculture on the full 9 acres and to comply with the APRs, which applies to the full 9 acres. So it seems to me you should take some interest in that because you're placing your trust in what he tells you. But I think there's a serious violation there in the history.
Well, again, you know, APR 3, you can't say the 9 acres because APR 3 is non-farmable. But he is trying to develop APRs 1 and 2 to supply produce and fruits and vegetables to the restaurant on APR 3. There's a building on APR 3 now. This would be another building on APR 3, APRs 1 and 2 would not change one iota. They would still be there complying with this agreement to develop active agricultural uses on the property.
Yeah, I think I've already said, but let me just repeat this point, that when you talk about the first 6 acres, that's totally irrelevant. And to say that I should be happy that there's going to be active agriculture on the first 6 acres, I would say that's irrelevant because it's required to be active agriculture now. And there's no change proposed, and there's no change that would happen. But there is a violation in not having the first 6 acres be farmed up to this date. So anyway, my interpretation of that is quite a bit different from yours.
Except that APR 3 bill is not being farmed now and has not been farmed. We're talking about an area that has been non-farmable. That building is still there. It was not planted on, according to Keith, and that's the way it was, has been for many, many, many years.
Well, it was part of the farm. It was part of the farm, and a certain amount of the farm can be used with greenhouses, and that part of the farm is used for the building, the farm stand, and also there's some places where vehicles drive around. And so that was part of the farm and really is required to still be part of the farm. This landowner is not doing what he has agreed to do by being the owner of that property.
So I have a question, maybe the last question for this interview. Tom and Bill, what are your thoughts on whether this article will pass?
That's really difficult to answer, Joyce. I know that there are thousands of people in Westford that would like to see this beautiful upscale restaurant on that parcel of land at 6668 Boston Road. Whether there will be...
just as an aside, I couldn't find anyone. I had to beg everyone who were proponents to come on the show, and thank you so much for coming. But it was really hard finding
well, that's, you know, they call it the silent majority sometimes, Joyce. We don't know whether it is there or not. I do want to say, both Tom and I have spent some time with Bill Harmon, and there is no personal situation. We seem to get along very, very well, and I like Bill very much, and I know Tom does. It is just a difference of opinion, and I think most people in town, no matter what happens, there will not be hopefully any ill feelings. We just want what we feel would be a very creditable and nice opportunity for the town of Westford. Bill feels obviously different, and he has every right to do that. He has been involved in town for many years, and his opinion is certainly important. We just feel that we have this difference of opinion, and so it's very difficult, if not impossible, to predict what will happen on something like this.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Bill?
Joyce, if I can just add one thing. Bill and I have tried to be available as much as we could. As you know, you and I conducted an interview the week before last. It was a 42-minute interview. I'm not sure where that went, but you know, we've been away ever since, which is why we couldn't make the Board of Selectmen's meeting, and we're still away. But we had agreed to do this interview today.
Yes.
So we're certainly not shying away.
Gracious to do so.
Yeah, we're certainly not shying away from being proponents for this article. We are very strong supporters for this article, and we certainly hope that many, many others in the town will turn out at the annual town meeting on March 23rd and show their support for this beautiful structure.
Thank you both. Bill Harmon, do you have a last word?
No, I agree totally. We want to have everybody come to town meeting Saturday of next weekend. And town meeting is always interesting, right, Joyce? We learn a lot, and there's some very interesting things that happen. So come on and join us. It's
the most pure form of democracy that there is, and I love going to it. So, Tom, Bill, any parting words before we say goodbye?
No, I think you know, basically, town meeting will be something that will, of course, be very interesting for all of us. It's been an educational thing for both Tom and I working through this in the last several months with Ebby. We've tried very hard to try to understand both sides. We've asked both, you know, a lot of the opposition, their feelings, and we have certainly taken that into consideration and appreciate them. It's just that we feel a little differently, and we hope that whatever happens, there will not be any ill feelings within the town once this vote is over.
Absolutely. We are all in agreement on that. So I want to thank you all for spending the time with me in the studio and remotely from the studio. It was very helpful to have you both contribute, Bill and Tom. And Bill Harmon, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Take care, all of you.
Bye-bye.
For WestfordCAT News, this is Joyce Polino Crane. See you around town, and please remember that town meeting is March 23rd, 10 a.m. at the Abbott School, and I think there are about 25 articles to decide. Have a great day, everyone.